What is up, everybody in YouTube land, and welcome to my segment from the mind of an appliance technician. I am your host and your friendly neighborhood technician, Chris, and this is C&G Appliance Television. I am so happy you could be here with me today. There are 50,000 other places on YouTube that you could be, but you're right here with me, and I so appreciate that. Alright, so you may notice I'm in a slightly different location. I'm not. I'm just actually spun around on my desk here. And I've got this little tabletop ice maker. Now, what this thing is, it's branded Igloo, but it's built by the company called Curtis for Igloo. So it's one of those deals where, you know, you call Curtis, they don't really know anything about it. They call Igloo, they don't know anything about it, I guess. I don't know. I'm fixing to call the 800 number on that ice maker and see if I can't locate some parts for this thing. I'll get into what I've found with this here in a little bit, but let's go through some basic theory of operation on this little tabletop ice machine. I don't see a lot out there on, theory of operation. I see a lot of videos about what their features are, and these things are becoming pretty popular in the market nowadays because they're an affordable way to get into having an ice machine. And you don't have a lot in these things, so they're great to, like, if you could run it off an inverter. I don't know if you can, but if you can run it off a generator or something like that, you could take one of these camping with you in an RV or something like that and have ice all the time. So it's a really great idea. And it uses, what water you put in it. There's no external water supply to this thing. There's no provision to supply this thing with water, although I'm sure you could if you wanted through the drain spout. But then it would just overflow the bin eventually, and you'd have to have a way to shut the water off, and it doesn't have anything like that. So it's best to just use this thing as it's designed. So without further ado, let's get into this one, and I'll explain to you briefly and in a very condensed way how this thing works. Now, I'm not going to get into refrigeration too much in the sealed system and everything like that, because there are plenty of videos out there on YouTube about that. I just want to get into the specifics of this particular ice maker so that you guys who may not have seen one of these before, I know I hadn't before this weekend actually, can understand how these things work. Now, they're not that different from like your general under-counter ice machines, so you can pretty much, if you know how to troubleshoot an ice machine already, it's not that hard to transition to one of these things. They're really easy. So we have a lid right here, and we can lift this up, exposing our ice bucket right here, and you remove that, and underneath it is a reservoir. Okay. Now you pour your water directly in here. You may not be able to see it, but there is a max line right about there-ish. My hand's in the way. But anyway, you'll see down there at the very bottom too, there's a little feed for the pump. That's the lowest spot. That's the feed for the circulation pump. Now the circulation pump will circulate water up through these guys, okay? And there's actually water spraying on these things continuously, although I'm not sure from where yet. I haven't exactly seen this thing work, and we'll get into that in a minute. But basically, when the ice is done, it drops off of here, okay? It looks like your water feed line is above this, so it's constantly dripping down this, which forms ice cubes. This is basically what takes the place of an evaporator in any other sealed system that we know as appliance technicians. So like your fridge and stuff like that, this would be the sort of coil in your fridge. When this is done, when a thermostat tells it to, it has a little motor on the side over here that will cycle it, the dump tray up, and it actually dumps the ice into this bucket here, which there's an eye somewhere in here, should be anyway, that tells it when this bucket is full, and then tells the machine to completely shut off. You have your size selections right here. You have small, medium, and large. You have your add water button, so when it's out it'll tell you, and then you have your ice full button, which tells you when the ice bucket is full and you should dump it or use it or whatever. And then of course you have your on-off switch right back here, or right down here. So that's pretty much the inside portion of it. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes of what really goes on in this thing. With that, so basically you have a dump extended and retracted micro switches, and these guys are little micro switches. You can hear them click right there, and basically that tells the board where this little pintle or where this little cam is, whether it's fully up or fully down. Okay, these little micro switches, I'm sure you can get them somewhere at a hobby shop. Those are really simple to replace if these things get sticky, which they often do. If you're familiar with microwaves, these micro switches are not fallible, or they're not infallible at all. This here is your condenser fan, standard DC condenser fan. Everything is DC in this thing. Your board in here rectifies everything, or rectifies your house current into DC. So this is your condenser fan right here, and behind it you can see the copper, well, you can't really see it, but you can see the copper line set right here. That is your condenser. Moving around to the back of the machine, this is where most of the business happens. This is your housing for your control board. All your outputs come off of this. It has, this is your hot gas valve, okay? If you're not familiar with a hot gas valve, basically what that does is it opens up a line from where your gases are hottest in your system and actually reroutes them on up to your evaporator. So basically there's three lines going into your evaporator. So there's a high side, a low side, and your hot gas. Okay, so your hot gas actually travels up into your line when the thermostat tells it to, okay, which is connected to the board. There's a little thermistor in there. It tells it, okay, my ice is at my thickness that I want, based on temperature inside the evaporator, based on a reading of temperature at the evaporator. They figure out, okay, I've got to shut my compressor down here off, and I've got to actually reverse, well, not really reverse the flow, but open up my hot gas valve so the hot gases can flow into the evaporator, warming it up for a second. And then it will, once the ice drops and the evaporator temperature returns to a preset value, usually around 50-something degrees, it will actually close the hot gas valve so that refrigerant doesn't cycle through here, and then start refrigeration again, and then probably start water up. Like I said, I haven't seen this one working yet because this board is the problem with this one, guys. And therein lies my issue. I've checked my suppliers and everything like that. I can't find parts for this thing. I can find basic little things like, wires, micro switches, things like that. But when it comes to like a hot gas valve or like a hot gas solenoid, let's say that was bad, or when it comes to really specific parts of this thing, guys, I'm at a loss. So I've looked at Curtis's website. They don't even have provision for this model. Of course, Igloo, they're like, oh, we don't really make those things. So, it's built for Igloo, but it's not an Igloo. This is an ICE103 is what the model number for this thing is. And I tried searching the serial number on Curtis's website, and that doesn't come up with anything. So it's probably one of those deals that was just Chinese built for Curtis, and then Igloo made a deal with Curtis and said, hey, can we slap our name on this thing? And they said, yeah, sure. And you have this. So I've encountered a few things. We had a grill several years ago that I completely rewired, actually. It was one of those fancy grills that's kind of smarter than you, but all the DC wires in the bulkhead of it got cooked up because, well, it got used. So it was really just a design flaw. And you called KitchenAid, and KitchenAid didn't know anything about it. And we got in touch with the original manufacturer of it, which I think was a company called Grillworks. I'm not exactly sure. But they originally built the machine, and they were finally able to give us some technical information on it, which really didn't help us because we really had to rebuild the whole wire harness and everything like that, which I did successfully. It took a while, but I did it. So this is probably going to be one of those projects sort of like that, I'm assuming. Of course, I'll keep you updated as information becomes available for this. However, that's just a basic theory of operation and rundown of this particular machine and most tabletop ice makers like this one as well. Now, I can't guarantee that all of them are controlled by a board, although I'm sure by this point in history they probably are. And I don't know, some of them are available, some of them are not. It's kind of a crapshoot as to which ones. I've researched different models and things like that just really quickly. And boards and things like that seem to be available for some of them, although I can't really at this point in my career tell you which ones they are, or which ones are available and which ones are not, I should say. So this has kind of been a different episode of From the Mind of an Appliance Tech, but I really just wanted to show you guys this thing because it's pretty cool to me. Just the fact that they cram all this stuff into a very teeny, like almost Keurig-sized compartment is getting pretty cool. This is still running on 134A. This runs on a 2.3 ounce charge of 134A. Now, what's interesting is, and I've touched on 600A. What's interesting about some of these is I'm starting to wonder if some of these will be in 600A here pretty soon. Now, if you're not familiar with 600A, our 600A is basically isobutane. I always said that propane and butane would make an excellent refrigerant if they could figure out how to safely compress it. And guess what? They have. Europe has actually outlawed 134A. They no longer use it, so they had to come up with something else. 600A is isobutane, which is butane with an added isomer. And what the added isomer actually does is raises the boiling point so that that particular refrigerant can be safely compressed in one of these hermetically sealed compressors. Okay, when we braze lines on these things with 600A, we have to purge the entire system with nitrogen before we braze, because we don't want to be starting any fires in people's houses, because it is very, very flammable. I have done lines without purging, and they make a flame about that long out of a little mini fridge. So, yeah, they're pretty dangerous, guys. So, I'm waiting to see these things with 600A, because 2.3 ounces, you're talking fractions of an ounce of isobutane that could do this work. That's what's really impressive about 600A, is it takes a lot less of it, and therefore you're compressing less. Your compressor is not working as hard, and it's compressing less. So essentially it's a lot more efficient. It's not having to work as hard, therefore it's not using as much electricity. And you want to talk crazy efficiency, there it is, guys. So it's going to be exciting to see what's coming down the pipe with 600A and things like that. So with that said, I think that's where I'm going to end this episode, guys. We got rid of shop updates first before I leave. We sold the modular washing machine today. That finally is out of our hair. So we've got two others that we've got to take a look at. An older Maytag. Like I said, I have to order lid switch bits for that thing, so that nothing's changed there. And then an old KitchenAid direct drive with the Aqua agitator, which I think is super cool. I'll take some snapshots of that thing. I've also down the pipe got, and I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video, I've got maybe I might have an output board tutorial on a Hibsch machine, which is it's a Hibsch dryer, or Hibsch, however you pronounce it. I think it's Hibsch, but it is basically a Speed Queen coin-op dryer. And I know there's not a lot about troubleshooting those things out there, and that's what I try to bring you guys when it comes to troubleshooting things, is the stuff that I don't typically see on YouTube. I want to help you guys out and bring you that kind of stuff if you've never seen it, okay? So once I go back and return, I'll start filming the second half of that when I return to that job. I haven't yet. I should this week sometime. And that's pretty much all there is to that. So if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and looking at this really neat example of a tabletop ice machine. We're going to see if we can get this thing fixed. I will keep you guys updated on that. thank you so much for being here with me. And you guys take it easy. And I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being here.